It's pretty crazy that they were able to pack a 20-core CPU in here along with an RTX 4070. I mean, this thing is smaller than an Xbox Series S and is far exceeding the performance that those consoles can put out. What's going on, everybody? It's ETAPRIME back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at the all-new Mix Mini Game Box. And earlier this year, it was about 5 months ago at the time of making this video, we took a look at their first rendition of this unit, which actually packed a 13th gen Intel CPU and an RTX 4060. But what we've got here is their upgraded version with a 14th gen Intel i7 HX CPU, and now we have an RTX 4070 in this unit. As you can see, this thing is absolutely tiny, and when it comes to console-sized PCs, this definitely takes the cake. This will fit right in your book bag, so it's perfect for traveling around with this mini gaming PC, and it does offer amazing 1440p gaming performance. And just to give you an idea of how small this PC really is, we've got some consoles right next to it, and this is the original PS5. I don't have a Slim to compare it to, but we've also got an Xbox Series S here, and as you can see, this is actually smaller than the Series S, which is pretty awesome. And just setting it up on its side, you can see it's a bit shorter than that Series S and thinner, so we really do have a pretty powerful console-sized gaming PC here. Inside of the box, along with this mini PC, they do send along an adapter that will actually take your single full-size USB up to 2 full-size USB ports, giving us just a little bit of extra I/O. But we also get a stand here so we can set it up vertically, and a 230 watt power supply. I'll tell you right now, we can get really close to that 230 watts with this thing at full load. This PC can be set up horizontally on the desk. It's got some rubber feet to kind of keep it up, but personally, I like using the stand here, keeping it vertically. That way we get a lot more airflow because all of the air is going to be pulled in from this side over here. It's going to exhaust out of the top, and this uses a dual fan, dual heatsink cooler design. One thing I'm really not keen on with this mini PC is the lack of I/O. Now, while we do get a 3.5mm audio jack, full-size USB 3.2, and 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, it would have been nice to have at least one USB Type-C over here on the front side. But moving around to the back, we've got our power input, full-size HDMI, another full-size USB 3.2 port, and Thunderbolt 4. So if you're looking for something with a lot of I/O, this one definitely isn't it. Of course, you could always use a hub with it, and they do include a full-size USB, making it a dual USB adapter, but then, we've got some stuff hanging off the side of this unit, and I wanted to keep this thing really small form factor. Storage is handled by a 2280 Gen 4 NVMe SSD. We can access it pretty easily from this side. We've got a little hatch, single screw, it'll pop right up. And I picked this up bare bones, or as bare bones as you can get these, because the RAM here is actually soldered to the board, so that's non-user upgradable. Basically, the only thing we can do is upgrade the storage, and I'm just going with the 2TB Gen 4 NVMe SSD, and they do leave us plenty of room to add a heatsink to that drive also. Now, when it comes to the overall specs, there are a few variants floating around, but the one we've got in this video has the Intel Core i7 14700HX, and with a lot of these newer mini PCs hitting the market with dedicated graphics, I've been seeing a lot of mini PC manufacturers using the Intel Core Ultra series. Really glad they didn't go that route with the newer version, and even the older ones had a 13th Gen H series CPU. But with this new 14700HX, we get 20 cores, 28 threads, 8 performance cores up to 5.5 GHz, and 12 efficiency cores up to 3.9. Now, one letdown with this PC is the lack of upgradable RAM. You can get this with either 16 or 32 gigs. It's soldered to the board, uses LPDDR5 at 5200 MHz. But the main claim to fame to this mini gaming PC is the GPU, because with this one, we've got the Nvidia GeForce RTX 4070. It's a laptop variant. We've got 8 gigs of GDDR6, and this is the 105 watt version. And I've done a little bit of digging in the BIOS and Afterburner settings. I was hoping that we could actually up the TGP on that GPU. Unfortunately, it's going to be locked there right at 105 watts, but you can still do some overclocking from Afterburner if you wanted to. Now, I will admit, the overall design is a bit funky. I consider this the backside where the power goes into it, and we've got the power button right here, along with a little bit of RGB. I kind of wish this whole thing was flipped around, because with it set up like this, we've actually got our Ethernet up front, which is a bit odd. Now, I completely understand that we could actually set this behind a monitor. It's definitely small enough to do so, but it would have been really nice to just have USB Type-C, 3.5, and a full-size USB port up front. Before we move into Windows, I wanted to show off a little bit of 1440p gameplay here. We've got Horizon Forbidden West, 1440p, high settings, DLSS is set to quality, and I've also enabled frame generation. This is one of those games I've just been trying to run on everything, and maxing this out really does take a super powerful system. Either way, I think it looks great here, and with that 40 series GPU, frame generation can definitely make a huge difference. Moving right into Windows. By the way, I'm using Windows 11 Pro here, and as you can see, we've got that i7-14700HX, 20 cores, 28 threads. I mean, it's quite a bit, and we could probably disable some of these. But I always like taking a look at, total TDP on the CPU, and since we're working with a dedicated GPU, we can check out the TGP also. Still have access to those Intel UHD graphics with this chip, but we're going to be using the Nvidia RTX 4070. Remember, this is the 105 watt, at least they claim it goes up to 105 watts, 8 gigs of RAM. Wish it was the 16 gigabyte model. Fortunately, they just don't offer it. From CPU-Z, we're going to run a bench, and I've got hardware info over here, so we can take a look at the TDP, and it looks like this thing is stuck right there at 130 watts. Gone through the BIOS, you could definitely up this if you want to, but we're already working with such a small form factor. I think 130 is more than enough, and benchmarks are looking great. Once the temperature gets up on that CPU, the fans definitely kick up. They're not whining or anything like that, but you do hear air moving. And I also wanted to make sure that this RTX 4070 really hit 105 watts. If you take a look at Afterburner, we've got our GPU power there. I mean, pegged right out at 105, going up to 106 every once in a while. And so far, everything's been working really well with this mini PC. Now, before we get into gaming, I did want to show off some benchmarks real quick. Firestrike coming in with a 28,950, really nice. And we've got that RTX card, so let's go ahead and run Port Royal, kind of a ray tracing benchmark. Total score here of 7,384. And finally, we've got Time Spy with a very impressive 12,853. Given the form factor, looking at these synthetic benchmarks, yeah, we've definitely got a quick little gaming machine on our hands, but these are synthetic benchmarks, and now it's time to get into some real-world gaming and see what this thing can really do. Alright, so first up, we've got Helldivers 2 1440p Ultra. DLSS is set to quality, and I'll tell you, even with this RTX 4070, DLSS is going to be your best friend with these mini PCs, and it does work wonders. I think it still looks great here, and we're getting an average of around 79 FPS. Starfield, actually haven't played this in a while. I kind of wanted to go back to it to see if we got a nice boost in performance. And I mean, with DLSS enabled, definitely seems like we do. But with this, we're at 1440p high, and DLSS is actually set to performance. If you've played this game, you know that basically in any city, it really takes a toll on most hardware out there. And this one's no different. We're only getting an average of around 73 FPS in cities. But, out in the open exploration, this will jump up into the 90s. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 using the built-in benchmark, 1440p ultra settings, no DLSS. And with this, we could also enable frame generation, which is really going to take it up. But I wanted to see what it would do at that native ultra, native 1440p. And we got an average of 77 FPS, a low of 59. Overall, not too bad. DLSS set to, let's say, ultra quality would really help out here. Fallout 4, I've been playing this quite a bit recently, and I just wanted to test it on this little machine. 1440p, maxed out. We're getting an average of around 84 FPS. I actually thought we'd get a bit more. This is the next-gen update, and I mean, it looks great like this, but I figured by now, given that the game is 8 or 9 years old at the time of making this video, we'd be able to lock this down at 120 just like it is. Mortal Kombat 1 for the fighting game test here. 1440p, ultra settings, no DLSS, and you might see a little bit of screen tearing. It's due to my game capture being set to 120, this game running at 60. On my monitor itself, not getting any of that tearing. Either way, we're at 60 FPS, maxed out with this game at 1440. Palworld, 1440p, ultra, with DLSS enabled, just going to quality, it really takes that frame rate up. We're seeing an average of around 98 FPS with this game on this little PC. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart 1440p Ultra. DLSS is set to balanced, and I'm using Nvidia's frame generation technology. Believe it or not, this game really does take a toll on these RTX cards. I mean, it doesn't seem like it given that it's a Ratchet & Clank game, but in an area like this with all particles and characters on screen, it can really bog down that GPU, but frame gen does work wonders. And finally, we've got Cyberpunk 2077 1440p Ultra frame gen on. So I really do like this technology. I don't notice a big difference here. I think it still looks great. I'm not seeing any tearing, and we're getting an average of around 96 FPS with this game. I've tested AMD's fluid motion frames on a lot of their GPUs, and it just seems that Nvidia's frame gen does work a lot better. And it's really unfortunate that it only works on 4000 series cards, and I'm sure it'll work on next generation. If they brought it over to RTX 3000 cards, it'd be really cool. Before we wrap this video up, the last thing I wanted to take a look at was total system power consumption from the wall. So while I'm doing all of my testing, I've got this plugged into a kilowatt meter. And at idle, this is around 18 watts. Remember, this is total from the GPU and CPU. Average 1440p gaming, this does jump up to 152 watts. And the maximum I could get this to pull was 223 watts. Comes with a 230 watt power supply, so we're getting really close there. But under everyday normal use and even 1440p gaming, we're not going over that threshold. So overall, when it comes to performance, yeah, it's really hard to beat a mini PC putting out this much performance. These do get quite expensive, and it's definitely got a funky design. I would love to see a little more I/O here and just basically flip this whole thing around so Ethernet isn't sticking out of the front. Well, at least what I consider the front. Usually we've got HDMI on the rear of everything that we have, so this is just a bit odd the way they've got it set up. But as you saw with this video, it is putting down some really great 1440p gaming performance. But that's going to wrap it up for this first look video. I will be spending more time with this. I'm actually going to turn this into my main gaming rig for the next few days. And if there's anything else you want to see running on this, let me know in the comments below. And if you're interested in learning a little more, I'll leave some links in the description. And like always, thanks for watching.